She stood at the edge of my kitchen, her voice low but firm. You need to keep an eye on him. I laughed it off. How could the man who kissed my forehead every morning be capable of breaking me? But mothers know their sons. And I should have listened. Thank you to all my amazing subscribers for following these powerful, emotional stories. If you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss the next twist. And if this story speaks to you, share it. Let's grow this community of truth, heartbreak, and healing together. She didn't say it to hurt me. She stood there in my kitchen, holding her cup of tea, wearing that knitted sweater she always wore in fall, and looked me right in the eye. You need to keep an eye on him, Lena. I thought she was being overprotective. Or maybe just a little controlling like she sometimes could be. I even laughed. Stellan? Yes, you're Stellan. She didn't smile. She just looked down into her cup and stirred it quietly. You don't know him like I do. That sentence should have meant something to me. It should have made me ask more questions. But love can make you deaf when you should be listening. When I first met Stellan, I felt like the luckiest woman in New Jersey. He was everything I'd ever prayed for, tall, gentle, driven, with those soft blue eyes that made you feel seen. We met at a bookstore downtown. He offered me the last copy of a novel I'd been hunting for, and the rest was history. Within a year, we were married. He built his business from scratch, while I left my job to take care of our home. We bought a cozy house in the suburbs. A little front porch. A backyard for the kids we planned to have. It all felt like a dream. Margaret, his mom, had always been polite but watchful. She didn't smile much, but she'd always been kind, bringing casseroles when I was sick, folding laundry without being asked. But even in her kindness, there was a quiet tension I couldn't place. One day, while Stellan was at a work meeting, she stopped by. She wasn't herself. She stood in my kitchen longer than usual, like she was trying to find the right words. And then she said it, there's something I've learned as a mother. You can raise a good man, but you can't always trust him to stay that way. My heart skipped. I asked her if something had happened, and she just shook her head. He's charming, Lena. You know that. But charm can be dangerous when it's used to hide something. That conversation haunted me for a few days. But Stellan came home like he always did, kissed me on the cheek, talked about his meetings, massaged my feet while we watched our favorite show. I convinced myself that Margaret was just old-fashioned. Suspicious of anything too perfect. Weeks went by. Things stayed the same. Or so I thought. Then Claire showed up. Stellan said she was new at the office. She worked in client relations and had just moved to town. We met her one Sunday after church. She had this warm smile and wore a simple dress that hugged her just enough to turn heads. She's sweet, I told Stellan in the car. He nodded but didn't say much. A few days later, I ran into Margaret again while getting groceries. She didn't even say hello before asking, have you met her yet? I blinked. Who? She just raised an eyebrow. Claire. I swallowed. Yes, at church. Why? Margaret pressed her lips together, clearly holding back. Be careful, Lena. That's all I'm saying. There it was again, that knot in my chest. But again, Stellan made it easy to forget. He held my hand while we cooked dinner, left sticky notes on my mirror saying, "You're beautiful," and "I love you." He talked about taking a trip with me, just the two of us. But in the quiet parts of my mind, I started noticing things I hadn't before. The late work meetings. The way he always put his phone face down. The sudden gym membership, said he wanted to stay in shape for me. I told myself to stop overthinking. We were happy. He loved me. He wouldn't throw this away. Would he? One night, I couldn't sleep. I got out of bed and walked down the hallway. His office door was slightly open. I peeked in. He wasn't working. He was on his phone. Smiling. His voice was soft. A whisper. I couldn't hear what he said, but I saw the way his fingers lingered on the screen before putting it down, face down, again. That moment hit differently. Like a weight I couldn't explain. I went back to bed and stared at the ceiling. Maybe Margaret wasn't trying to scare me. Maybe she wasn't being dramatic. Maybe she was right. It started with small things. Claire texting Stellan late at night about work stuff. Him laughing at his phone more than usual. Him changing his passcode, not once, but twice. I noticed it all. But I didn't say anything. Not yet. I was trying to believe in my husband, trying not to be that jealous wife who reads too much into everything. But the feeling in my gut wouldn't go away. One evening, he came home later than usual. His tie was loosened, and he smelled faintly of women's perfume, not mine. He leaned in to kiss me like nothing was wrong. How was work? I asked casually. Busy. Claire messed up a client file, so I had to stay late and help her fix it. He said her name too easily, like they were closer than they should have been. She's lucky to have you, I replied, forcing a smile. He didn't catch the tone in my voice. Or maybe he did and just ignored it. That weekend, Stellan said he had to work again, on a Saturday. I offered to come by the office and bring him lunch. He hesitated. You don't have to do that, babe. I'll just grab something with Claire. We're wrapping up the project together. There it was again. Claire. I said nothing. Just nodded and pretended like it didn't sting. But I didn't stay home. I got in my car and drove down to the office building where he worked. I parked across the street and waited. An hour passed. Then, I saw them. Stellan and Claire walking out together. Not in a hurry. Not rushed. Just, comfortable. She reached up and fixed his collar, and he didn't stop her. My heart dropped. They got into separate cars, but that moment? It was enough. I drove home in silence, gripping the wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. Later that night, I confronted him. Not directly. I eased into it. How's Claire? I asked as we lay in bed. He shrugged. Fine. Why? I turned toward him. You spend a lot of time with her. He let out a soft laugh. It's work, Lena. Don't start this. I'm not starting anything, I said. I just think it's a little, too much. He sat up, annoyed. I knew this would happen. She's just a coworker. That's it. But his eyes didn't meet mine when he said it. He turned his back to me and went quiet. I stared at the ceiling again, that same ache creeping back in. My heart didn't feel safe. My mind was racing. The next day, Margaret came by. She took one look at me and knew something was wrong. I saw them, I said quietly. She didn't ask who. She already knew. Did he touch her? She asked. No. But she touched him. Margaret closed her eyes and let out a breath. That boy is going to lose the best thing that ever happened to him. I felt a lump rise in my throat. Do you think he's sleeping with her? She didn't answer. Instead, she reached for my hand and squeezed it. Lena, some men don't need a bed to betray you. Sometimes it starts with a look. A secret. A silence. That hit me hard. Because I knew. Stellan had already started slipping away. That evening, I made a decision. I wasn't going to sit in the dark anymore. I waited until he was in the shower, and I picked up his phone. Locked. I tried his birthday. Wrong. Our anniversary. Still wrong. I stood there staring at the screen, shaking. Why was he locking me out? He used to hand me his phone without thinking. Now it felt like a wall between us. He came out of the bathroom, saw me holding it, and froze. Why are you on my phone? I was trying to call my mom. Lena, he said firmly, walking over and snatching it out of my hands. This isn't okay. No, I said, my voice low but firm. What's not okay is you lying to me. Hiding things. I'm not hiding anything, he snapped. Then open your phone and show me, I challenged. He didn't. He walked away. I sat on the couch for hours that night, alone in the dark, thinking about everything. This wasn't just about Claire. This was about trust. About lies. About the person I married becoming a stranger. And the most painful part? I wasn't even angry. I was heartbroken. Some truths don't scream when they show up, they whisper. Quiet, steady, and cruel. It was a Thursday morning when my world cracked open. Stellan was in the shower. His phone buzzed once. Then again. I didn't move at first. But something told me to look. I didn't try to guess his passcode this time, I just watched the screen. 2 notifications lit up one after the other. Claire, last night felt right. I miss you already. Claire, can we talk before the weekend? The room spun. My chest tightened so fast I had to grab the kitchen counter just to stay on my feet. He was cheating. It wasn't just flirting or long hours at work. It was real. I felt cold all over. The kind of cold that settles in your bones when your heart finally hears the truth it's been trying to deny. I waited until he stepped out of the bathroom. He looked at me, towel around his waist, smiling like nothing was wrong. I handed him his phone. He stared at me, confused. Then saw the expression on my face. Lena. Don't lie. His smile faded. What did you see? Claire, I said quietly. I saw Claire. His shoulders dropped. That was all the confirmation I needed. I didn't mean for it to happen, he said, avoiding my eyes. I nodded slowly. But it did. He sat down on the edge of the bed. Silent. No excuses. No begging. Just guilt. How long? I asked. 3 months, he whispered. I nearly laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it hurt so bad I didn't know what else to do. 3 months. 3 months of dinners, kisses, fake smiles, and pretending. I turned and walked out of the room. I drove straight to Margaret's. When she opened the door and saw my face, she pulled me into her arms without saying a word. I cried. The kind of cry that shakes your whole body and leaves you breathless. He said 3 months, I choked out. 3. She didn't ask what I was going to do. She just said, let's get you inside. That night, I didn't go home. I stayed in her guest room, curled up like a child, while Margaret brought me tea and tissues. My phone rang. It was Stellan. I didn't answer. He texted, I'm sorry. I love you. Please come home. I didn't reply. Because sorry felt like a band-aid on a broken bone. The next morning, I returned to the house. Not because I forgave him, but because it was still my home too. He was sitting on the couch, eyes red, still in the same clothes from the night before. You didn't sleep, I said. I couldn't. I didn't either. He stood up. Lena. I made a mistake. A huge one. I crossed my arms. You didn't just make a mistake, Stellan. You chose her. He walked toward me. I don't love her. It didn't mean anything. It meant something. Enough to risk everything. Silence. I was lonely, he finally said. You've been distant. I stared at him in disbelief. You're blaming me? No, he said quickly. I'm just saying, things haven't been the same since your dad passed. You shut me out. I felt the tears coming again. So instead of helping me grieve, you ran to someone else. He dropped his head. I'm sorry, he said again. But the words sounded smaller now. Weaker. Emptier. Over the next few days, we lived like strangers in the same house. He tried to talk. I couldn't bring myself to listen. Every time he reached for my hand, I pulled away. Every time he looked at me, all I saw was her. One evening, Margaret called. "Come outside," she said. I stepped out and saw her car parked at the curb. She wasn't alone. In the passenger seat sat my brother, Chris, back in town for the first time in 2 years. He stepped out and wrapped me in the kind of hug that reminded me who I was before the heartbreak. "You don't have to stay," he whispered. "I don't know what to do," I whispered back. "Then don't do anything. Just feel what you feel. That's enough for now." And it was. But the story wasn't over yet. Because secrets don't just break hearts, they leave pieces behind. And some pieces refuse to stay buried. You think you know what betrayal feels like, until you meet the person who helped make it real. It happened on a rainy Tuesday. I was in the parking lot of the grocery store, reaching for a bag of apples when I heard a voice behind me. "Lena?" I turned around slowly. It was her. Claire. Not a picture. Not a message on Stellan's phone. But her. In the flesh. Holding an umbrella, face pale, eyes wide like she hadn't expected to see me either. For a second, we both froze. Then I spoke. "I know who you are." Her face flushed. She nodded slowly. "I figured you did." She didn't run. She didn't yell or throw excuses. Instead, she asked something I didn't expect. "Can I talk to you?" I should have walked away. I wanted to. But I didn't. Maybe I wanted answers. Maybe I wanted to see if she felt anything like I did. We sat on a bench outside the store. The rain tapped lightly on the metal above us. And then she started. "I didn't plan for this to happen," she said. I let out a dry laugh. "You knew he was married." "I did," she whispered. "And I hated myself for it every single day." I stayed quiet. Let her talk. "I met Stellan through a mutual friend. I didn't even know he was married the first few times we talked. He never mentioned you, not until much later." My stomach turned. "I found out a few weeks in," she said. "He told me you were going through something, that you changed. That he felt alone." My fists clenched, but I stayed still. "I should have walked away," she continued. "I knew better. But he made me feel seen. Like I mattered. And I hadn't felt that in a long time." Her voice cracked then. Not a performance, real guilt, I could tell. "I'm not asking for your forgiveness," she said. "I just wanted you to know. I didn't do this to hurt you. And he never stopped talking about you. Even when he was with me." I looked at her then. For the first time. And I realized something. She didn't steal him. He gave himself away. Back home, Stellan was in the kitchen when I walked in. He looked up, startled. "Where were you?" he asked. I saw her. His face went pale. "Claire?" I nodded. She told me everything. He stepped closer. "Lena. She said you talked about me even when you were with her." He looked down. "She said you made her feel like she mattered. Like you needed her." He nodded once, slowly. "And I just kept wondering," I whispered, "why didn't I matter enough?" His eyes filled with tears. "You do. I was just so scared of losing you, that I pushed you away first. Then you lost me anyway." That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about everything that had led to this. Grief. Loneliness. Distance. But also choices. He could have talked to me. He could have waited. He could have fought for us. Instead, He made someone else feel special while I cried alone in the next room. The next morning, I packed a small bag. Stellan stood in the doorway, watching me. "Where will you go?" he asked, voice shaking. "To my brother's." "For a while." He nodded, lips trembling. Is this goodbye?" "I don't know," I said honestly. "But I need to remember who I was before you forgot me." Then I walked past him, down the stairs, and out the door. He didn't follow. But even as I drove away, I knew something had shifted. Not just between me and Stellan, but inside me. I wasn't just the woman he cheated on. I was the woman who survived it. Some endings don't come with fireworks or doors slamming shut. Sometimes, it's just silence. A deep, hollow kind that echoes in your chest. That's what I carried with me when I left. The first few nights at my brother's house were quiet. Too quiet. No Stellan pacing around the room. No sound of the shower running in the early hours because he couldn't sleep. No awkward silence between us at dinner, pretending like things were fine. Just me. A bed. And the weight of everything I'd been ignoring. Grief was strange. It didn't just come from losing Stellan. It came from losing the version of myself who trusted too easily, who loved too hard. 3 weeks passed before he reached out. A letter. Not a text. Not a call. A real handwritten letter, left in my mailbox with just my name on the front. Lena. He wrote about the first time he saw me cry, how it broke him. He talked about our late-night drives. About the way I laughed with my whole face. How he missed the way I used to kiss his shoulder every morning before work. And then he wrote, "I broke you. And I'm not sure if I deserve your forgiveness. But I wanted you to know, I never stopped loving you. Not even when I was being the worst version of myself." I folded the letter and placed it in the drawer beside my bed. I didn't cry. Not because it didn't hurt. But because I had cried enough. Healing wasn't linear. Some days I felt strong, like I could take on the world with one deep breath. Other days, I stayed in bed with old pictures and heavy thoughts. But I was changing. Slowly. I started therapy. I picked up my old sketchbook again. I even laughed, genuinely, when my niece spilled juice on my favorite blouse. I was becoming someone new. Not out of spite. Not because of Stellan. But because I owed it to myself. One Sunday afternoon, I walked into the local bookstore and found a small group of women gathered near the back. They were in a circle, talking softly, sipping tea. A sign read, "Women Rebuilding After Betrayal." I stood there, hesitant, until one of them smiled and waved me over. "First time?" she asked. I nodded. They made room for me. And for the first time, I told my story to strangers who understood. I wasn't alone anymore. Months passed. Stellan reached out again. Once. Then again. Eventually, we met for coffee. He looked older. Not in age, but in the way guilt had carved lines into his face. "I just wanted to say sorry." "In person," he said. I nodded. "You already did. In your letter. Did you believe me?" "I believe you loved me," I said softly. "But you didn't protect me. And I needed that more than anything." We sat in silence after that. No expectations. No promises. Just a final moment of closure. I don't know where life will take me next. Maybe I'll fall in love again. Maybe I'll build something entirely on my own. But I know this much, I'm not the same woman who once begged a man to choose her. Now, I choose myself. Every single day. Thank you to everyone who followed this story to the very end. If you've ever been betrayed, hurt, or left behind, know that healing is not only possible, it's powerful. You are not